I had this realization recently that just made my brain explode. All of the greatest powers and abilities I have, I can't put them on a LinkedIn CV/resume without seeming insane. For example, why can you not put bomb-ass sex skills on a CV? People would think you're insane, right? But at the same time, can't you realize that bomb-ass sex skills have been necessary to the continuation of the human species? That means the very fact that sex has been required for human beings to continue to exist shows that it's a huge source of power, right? And who has that power? A woman. Duh. But how do you control that power if you don't have a womb yourself? You make them operate in patterns of thinking where they give their power to you. Subjugation. One of the easiest ways to do this is shame. I have a sincere question for you today. In this process of becoming someone that you really want to be and creating what you want out of your life, this question is, what aspects of yourself and your past make you feel shameful? Because shame is this very limiting and contracting emotion that constantly eats away at us subconsciously 24/7, stopping us from creating more of who we really are. Think of it this way. Shame is one of the antithesis emotions to love. When you feel loved by the right person, you become more of yourself. When you're surrounded by friends and places, environments that nurture you, you literally feel expansion. You become more of yourself because these people and places encourage that and bring that out of you. It inspires you to be a better person even, to be more of yourself in the positive sense. However, when we feel shameful, fearful, or embarrassed, it's literally a cold, contracting emotion that makes us become smaller and gives us a desire to hide ourselves. And if you've noticed this, compared to relationships as a metaphor, when you're with the wrong person and you're incompatible, you feel this pattern of censoring yourself, feeling like perhaps I'm being too much, or I need to change how I am to please this other person. It could be also an organization that you need to fit into at the expense of your own well-being. Those are the two antithesis emotions I want you to navigate, and I want to help you navigate in order to become a better, more authentic version of yourself. How can you be authentic when you have this subconscious energy drain of feeling shameful from a day-to-day basis? I learned to parent myself in many ways and to be my own life coach. And I speak to women and I feel and I hear this pattern come up over and over again, which is there's a lot of shame and guilt around sex, intimacy, relationships from the past. And for the male version of this, oftentimes, though lots of these things are not gender specific, they just tend towards different categories. The male version of this would be like proving yourself, making a name or establishing yourself in your career and feeling like you need to prove yourself in some way. Women also feeling they need to prove themselves in some way in terms of a relationship, looks, etc. Where do you feel the most shame? On an energetic level, as a psychic, I can feel these sort of negative energy attachments on people. These are these dark gray clouds that really suck away your energy like a dementor, because depression is very much the same thing. It's sucking away your life force. And a lot of the time, when you go through your day-to-day life, if you're not very conscious, it could be there without you even knowing, and it's just eating away at your energy. So the biggest negative attachments I notice in people is guilt, fear, and shame. And what I want to ask you is, what are these specific attachments you have in your life? And generally for people, I've noticed this goes towards what happened in the past. For example, if you grew up poor or you grew up in a house where you did not feel comfortable inviting people over, that's a lot of shame and embarrassment. Because what is more intimate and what more personal than the environment and the people that raised you? As an artist, I navigate and I've experienced places that would blow a lot of people's minds. Because one moment I'm in the headquarters of a major luxury company making artwork for their offices, and the other moment I'm back home with my parents looking at all of the rice and crap they hoarded that's filling up with bugs and gnats that's blocking the entryway, the door to the house. How do you reconcile that sort of shame? Also, people who you had sex with in the past, or how you let yourself be treated when you did not know better, there is so much shame and guilt towards yourself at the ultimate level about these things that happened in the past. And these are some of the biggest energy drains I notice in myself and other people. These negative forces are literally like leashes or cords that hold you back from feeling confident and empowered enough to go ahead and do what you want to really do. Because one thing I've noticed is God, which the God I believe in is the ultimate energy or divine harmony that makes reality unfold in the highest order. And everything that goes against that in a sort of like cancer-like way, leaning towards the negativity, right? The darkness. So what I've noticed is every human being has a unique soul pattern or frequency. This is why a lot of people, when you start talking about manifestation, you become very conscious and aware of the language you use, the music you listen to, and even the people you surround yourself with or your home environments. For example, having a broken mirror in your house or having a dead plant. You would become, when you're conscious, you'll become aware of how these little things in your day-to-day life, if you don't protect yourself from it or you don't remove them, can really drain your energy. Because this is also, on a deeper level, how spells work. Through the law of resonance, and as above, so below, the smallest details of your life reveal bigger patterns that repeat over and over until you learn to overcome them, right? So, what are the biggest energy drains? How can you identify these origins of shame in your own life and then actually overcome them? How comfortable do you feel saying aloud, I love sex. I love making love. I am a queen of fucking. I am a sex goddess. Does saying something like that as a woman make you feel uncomfortable? Because if it does, it's a good litmus test to see how much shame or how much value you place on external factors and also what happened in the past. When you're looking to create a different version of yourself and rebrand, because I said this to a girl on the call recently. I want to remind you that the biggest celebrity in the United States of America, Kim Kardashian, her sex tape is literally less than 10 clicks away from anyone with internet access. Granted, you're living in a country where you're allowed to access that sort of stuff. But just to put into perspective, to reach a certain level of influence and power, just like over yourself even, and your immediate surroundings, it takes a level of understanding you do not care and complete total emotional detachment. Here are some of the biggest sources of energy drains I've noticed. Besides shame, let's go into detail, okay? Shame around sex, shame around intimacy, around performing well enough. Let me ask you this. How do you feel towards your exes? if your past girlfriends or boyfriends, or even past spouses, if you talk negatively about them, if you resent them, or if you belittle them, what does that say about you? I saw this on TikTok the other day from my beautiful TikTok University PhD. I saw this beautiful post saying one person who wanted to quit smoking, he just started telling himself every time he got the urge to smoke, like to think about smoking or to start performing the actions of going out to take a smoke break, he would tell himself, what an interesting and bizarre thought for a non-smoker. You can literally rephrase this sentence for any aspect of your life. So let's say you want to have a confident, happy, healthy relationship or friendship. Every time you catch yourself judging someone, think to yourself, what an interesting, bizarre thought for a XYZ, insert the trait you want, person to have. For example, I used to go around Paris when I had a lot of disordered eating patterns. I would go around scanning the streets and everyone crossing my way, seeing if these women were skinnier than me or fatter than me. And if they were skinnier, I would judge them. If they were fatter than me, I would judge them too. But that is just a byproduct of how messed up some of your shame and fear and guilt patterns can be, because those are literally negative attachments that go like here. Negative entities when they want to feed off of you because they need food through your negative thoughts and thought loops. So what happens is these negative entities, they literally like loom over you behind here like a dark cloud, siphoning away your life force. So sometimes if you notice you behave in like a really irrational way or have an outlandish outburst or just start thinking these really negative judgmental thoughts about other people, it could be a negative attachment trying to feed off of you, and it likely is. So when you catch yourself having these negative judgmental thoughts, that's another great clue to reveal where those deepest patterns of shame and self-worth issues are linked in your physical and energetic body. So, do you know why guilt, fear, and shame have been instilled in us and why it's so prevalent in society? So, human beings as individuals, when they don't have limiting beliefs, we are so incredibly powerful. The things we can achieve are beyond what we even see for ourselves. Like what God plans for us is so much greater than sometimes what we can imagine from a lower perspective, right? From the 3D perspective on this earth. You don't have the bird's eye view. People who want to accumulate power, influence, wealth, whatever, in the negative, to harness this energy in an unethical way, they know that human beings have this much energy and they want to take that away to their own benefit. So how do you control big groups of people, large masses of people? Well, you make them behave in predictable patterns, literally program them like a computer. How do you do this? You can set up negative belief systems disguised as entities that want to help you. So it's like a Trojan horse. What are some examples of Trojan horses in our day-to-day lives, in our belief system, that seem to be helping us but are actually polluting us? I'll give you one example. Parents. The advice your parents give you, just like any advice I tell to anyone, even people who are like paying for advice from me, I tell them, take what works for you and then leave the rest. And also be careful of taking advice from people whose lives you do not want to emulate or recreate. Second point, religion. There are so many great, empowering qualities, traditions, and aspects of religion that get hidden up and corrupted through the negative aspects of fake religion. So any belief system or organization that took that disguised themselves under the name of religion to make you feel guilty, shameful, or fearful. Because when you can elicit these negative emotions from people, they become easy to control. And by proxy, you have power over them, and they give you their power. There are people who operate like this, and there are entities who operate like this. They feed off of the energy that other people, when they disempower themselves through externalizing their validation and belief systems, they just give away their power. So why is the Catholic Church sometimes so strict and harsh about sex, and yet at the same time covering up all these scandals related to that? I had this realization recently that just made my brain explode. All of the greatest powers and abilities I have, I can't put them on a LinkedIn CV/resume without seeming insane. For example, why can you not put bomb-ass sex skills on a CV? People would think you're insane, right? But at the same time, can't you realize that bomb-ass sex skills have been necessary to the continuation of the human species? That means the very fact that sex has been required for human beings to continue to exist shows that it's a huge source of power, right? And who has that power? Women. Duh. But how do you control that power if you don't have a womb yourself? You make them operate in patterns of thinking where they give their power to you. Subjugation. One of the easiest ways to do this is shame. So oftentimes when we try to rewire our subconscious mind, reprogram these negative beliefs we had, they've actually been passed down through millennia, through generations, into our DNA, into our blood and bone marrow. It goes very deep. So be understanding with yourself when you're trying to when you take the active effort to extract these negative beliefs from your system. Every weakness, I've realized, is a source of power in disguise. So when you feel any sort of shame around either sex or feeling shame about being seen, being appreciated, or being like on stage in front of an audience, having an audience, every time you feel shame about being in the homes of people or in beautiful spaces when you did not grow up in a house, in a home that was like that, every time you feel these sources of shame, know that it is your opportunity to completely rewrite that. The biggest thieves of energy come from our past. So let me give you some practical advice on how you can actually apply this so you don't have these negative systems sucking away your energy. When you want to create something, that requires energy, right? Whether you're a scientist or a spiritualist, you know to manifest or bring down to earth into reality what you want, you need energy. So you can get a lot of energy from yourself, from nature, but also from your lineage, your parents. Oftentimes what I've noticed when I speak to people is they have a lot of trauma and shame around their parents. My approach to this is knowing that my soul chose my parents when I came to earth, and I would not have it any other way. A lot of people sometimes feel childish or feel not like themselves when they go back to old friends they've outgrown, or people they used to know that haven't spoken to in a while, or even your childhood home. It almost evokes an older version of you that you're not very proud of. And that's because sometimes people, when they don't see the highest version of yourself, they only know you from your past self. What happens is on an energetic level, they evoke that out of you because that is still the filter through which they see you. So for example, a lot of parents, they still see their grown child, adult child, as their own little boy or girl, which makes sense. And some friends that you might have met when you weren't in the best space in life, there'll be that energetic association of how you felt at that period of your life with that person, or with through interacting with these people that you used to be friends with. Now, how can you communicate or create a healthy spiritual bond with your father and mother when you have had like some negative experiences with them in the past or continuing on the present? I think of it this way. I speak to, maintain, and respect a core to my parents because they created me, and that's how you get a lot of energy for manifestation. I speak also to their higher selves. So there is the earthly self, my earthly self in this 3D reality, and the 3D version of them that did the best they could with what they knew, and then the higher version of themselves that don't have the judgment, the negativity, the sharpness, and all the unclean memories associated with life on earth. So I maintain that higher connection with my parents and with my lineage to bring energy to me. A lot of this knowledge on energetic consciousness you can learn from the Kabbalah, which isn't just for Jews. It really transcends different religions across time and space. So I highly recommend that. And to get to the root of your shame and fear, that will be the key to your success. I'm telling you this bluntly. It's quite funny, actually. If you want to find the fastest route to whatever you wish to accomplish, sometimes the most effective way to do this is to react the opposite of how you're supposed to. For example, something seemingly awful happens to you, like for me, getting my French naturalization denied, getting my visa expired, not getting it renewed for like 2 years and then them telling me no, apartment flooding, strange people moving into my building when I still live in Paris. Those are all signs telling me you need to move somewhere else because this is not where you're meant to be forever. It was a phase in your life where you needed to be, but now the phase, you have outgrown it. And I was so attached to that place, so the idea of staying in that place forever, even though it wasn't the best outcome for me, that I was scared of any change. Embrace the change, because in order to have what you want that is different from what you currently experience, change is a requirement, but change feels scary to someone who doesn't see the unfolding of things. That's why trust is one of the biggest sources of empowerment you can have in your life. Trust. Religious people, they call this faith. Trust is knowing you'll be okay, even if the seemingly worst scenarios happen in front of you, because nothing is a coincidence and it's always teaching you something. I want you to go ahead and know that any fear, any shame that you feel that makes you feel small, that makes you feel cold and contracted and tells you to hide, that is a gift in disguise. Everything negative in your life can be a gift in disguise, though sometimes in the moment it feels too difficult to see it that way. Okay? In your little sources of shame, they are your biggest clues to where your success is. Think of Plato's allegory of the cave. Fears and shame, negative beliefs you have, are literally the shadows on the wall, giving you a clue, telling you where the light and where the solution is, so that you can turn your head and walk out and head towards where you need to be. So the issue arises when we focus on those shadows on the wall and don't see them for what they could be, which are clues to where the light is. Okay? I love you all so much, and I really wish you a beautiful life. You can find me on Instagram under La Princesse des Beaux-Arts if you wish, or book a call with me. Okay? I'm gonna go enjoy a beautiful steak frites because I'm so hungry. Nothing for me. Okay, listen. Having an empty fridge makes me feel so wealthy. Because there's something about having an empty fridge but knowing that I'll still be fed just reinforces that idea of I'll be okay in the end. And this is just like a me thing personally, but I'm sure some of you can resonate. I like having a mostly empty fridge except for some like really nice, unique drinks like plum tea or a random broccoli stem or some farmer's market carrots that I just like to looking at rather than eating. Having an empty fridge, I don't like to eat the same thing day after day. I don't like leftovers. I like fresh food. I like having something different every day. And I don't like the feeling of food sitting in your fridge waiting for you to eat it, you know? It makes me feel kind of pathetic because when you have food in your fridge and you feel this like, oh, I need to eat it before it goes bad, it's like this little food has control over you. I don't like that. I don't like anything having like that hold over me, especially if it's gonna be like a freaking carrot or some chicken noodle soup I made 2 days ago. Does that make sense? Yeah. Don't let leftover food have any control over you, and don't let shame or these negative emotions dictate your life. You are so much better than that. Bye.